Hello, people in the future. Thank you for continuing to watch these old broadcasts from a galaxy long, long ago. If your elders haven't already taught you this, TV shows were basically like longer versions of films, but not as good. But every now and again, there was a TV show that bucked the trend, and today I'm going to be talking about my all-time favourite 20 of those. But don't worry if you can't find any old discs of TV shows lying around in the nuclear waste landscapes that you've got in your present. It's mainly films that you want to be pillaging and scavenging for. So I haven't done that much TV-related content on this channel, the occasional review of a horror TV show from time to time, but generally I'm all about the films. But on an evening, I will often watch as much TV as I will films. But I just feel like when it comes to this channel, it's hard enough sometimes for me to get the time to sit down and do a film-related video. If I did TV stuff as well, I think that would just make the channel too wide-ranging for me, too large in scope. So I like to just stick to the films. I prefer films anyway, in all honesty. But just for today, I'm going to do a TV exclusive rankings. This is my top 20 shows of all time. Now, just to warn you, there's something that you're probably going to hear quite a lot today, and it'll sound something like this. I love this show. I've only seen the first 2 seasons, but I absolutely love it. I am terrible at finishing TV shows. I just can't do it. In fact, there might not be a single show in this top 20 today that I've completely maxed out and watched all the episodes for, as crazy as that sounds. But some of the really great TV shows, they just go on for so long. Sometimes I will literally watch like over 100 episodes and then I'll just mentally check out. I'll want to go and discover something different. But that doesn't mean I'm not a fan of that particular show, if you know what I mean. Right, let's dive into it then, and we'll start with my 20th favourite TV show of all time. This is a cop drama that ended about 10 years ago. It takes place in a police department in LA, but it centres around 4 particular characters who are part of what's known as the strike team. They're like this little group of hard hitters within the department who are brought in whenever there's a really big drugs bust that needs to be done. But all 4 of these guys are corrupt. They're all in it together. They steal money from drugs busts. They'll kill other police officers if they get in their way. They've got this whole dark side to them, which just makes them absolutely fascinating. This show pulls no punches. It's got so many moments that will literally just blow your socks off and take you by surprise. I can't remember the name of the guy who's like the main lead, although he's been in tons of TV shows. Walter Goggins is one of the strike team, though. He went on to do tons of stuff in Hollywood, but this was the show that got him noticed. He's absolutely awesome in this. It runs for about 70 episodes, I think, across roughly 7 seasons. I didn't quite make it to the end. In season 6, it just started to drag a little bit for me. Forrest Whitaker, I think, comes in and with this corrupt cop subplot, and I just started to get a little bit tired of it at that point. So I didn't watch the final season. I just looked up the final 10 minutes or so on YouTube just so I could see how it ended. But just for the first 5 seasons alone, this is absolutely awesome. And at 70 episodes, it's not going to cost you half your life to commit to it. You know, there are shows in this ranking today which run for a lot longer than this. I think this is the only superhero-related show on this list. I watch this a lot with my wife. Now, me and my wife, we don't really watch films together because our tastes are just at completely the opposite ends of the spectrum from each other. I'm a big horror guy. She's a big romantic comedy, Disney sort of person, and it's very rare we find a film in the middle that we can meet on. Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean would be some exceptions. With TV, though, we're able to watch more stuff together because when it comes to TV, I come away from horror a lot more. I think that's the biggest reason. Supergirl's a show that we watched for quite a long time. It's more the Christopher Reeve sort of tone of super-related stuff rather than your Zack Snyder sort of stuff. This is a very light-hearted show, you know. It's more about the laughs than serious, heavy stuff happening in it. It's got a great Supergirl, though. It runs for about 6 seasons, I think, 5 or 6. We only watched the first 3, and it's not like I got bored of this. I think literally we just never got around to starting season 4, and then after that we just left it. So I've seen about half of the episodes in this whole run, but it's very, very good. It's part of a trio of shows that are all interlinked. So you've got Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and The Flash. Legends of Tomorrow is like a Guardians of the Galaxy type thing. I'd say that's the second best of these three. And The Flash is probably the weakest of the three for me. The Flash has a great first season, and then after that, it just starts to get a bit tiresome. Seasons 2, 3, it just keeps repeating itself. It feels very samey. We tuned out of that deliberately not long after we'd started season 4, and I believe they're just about to start season 9 of The Flash, but how the hell that's been able to go as long as that, I just cannot even fathom, honestly. But Supergirl's the best of the three. It's the only one in today's ranking, and I like to think one day I'll go and finish it off, but I'm just not sure if I will or not. It's tempting for me to assume that everybody will know what Lost is, but it finished quite a long time ago now. If you are a teenage person watching this video, you might not have heard of Lost. So I guess I'd better give you a quick synopsis. So this is about a group of people on a plane who they crash somewhere near Australia, I think, and they all end up on this island, and basically they're stuck there. It's a very, very large island. It's huge, in fact, but they're stuck there. And so for the rest of this show, across 117 episodes, I don't know if you can see the colour of this notepad, by the way. Yes, it's pink. I got it off my daughter. She had way too many notepads, and I didn't have any, so she gave me one of her pink notepads. 117 episodes this show goes on for, and throughout that time, we follow the characters' relationships with each other. They discover various secrets about the island. It's really good. Honestly, the first season of this show is one of the best seasons of TV I've ever seen. It's absolutely phenomenal. The quality rises and dips a little bit with later seasons. This is another one I didn't get all the way through. I got as far as... I got about halfway through season 4, and then it started to get really complicated. Like, there was all stuff to do with wormholes and time travel and flashbacks and flash forwards, and yeah, it gets really complex, and I just stopped watching it. But I want to go back and finish this at some point. But I would have to start again, though, and I would absolutely have to do the whole run from the beginning. Sadly, it's been that long now. Maybe next time I'll take my pink notepad with me and make notes as I'm going along, just so I don't lose track of... Because there's a lot going on in this. There's a lot of balls you have to juggle. There's characters over this side of the island, people doing things over there, people doing stuff in other dimensions and timelines. It's a tough one to follow. You've got to be on your game in terms of concentration and following it and stuff, but it's high quality TV. When this came out, this was a big thing. You know, I can still remember when the premiere came on TV for this. It was really exciting stuff, and for a while, especially through the first 2 seasons when everybody was watching it, you know, later seasons people stopped watching it and stuff, but the first 2 seasons, you'd go to work and everybody would be they'd be talking about various theories about the show and stuff every time there was a new episode on, and it was cool. It was cool back then. This is a horror show where every season gives you a completely different story from a different subgenre of horror. So the season that I've just finished watching, season 5, is this supernatural ghost story set in a hotel, but the season before that was set in a circus and was all about body horror. You get something different every time. Now, this ranking today has come along at completely the wrong time for this show, because I really didn't like season 5. For me, it was a complete dud, but I loved the first 4 seasons. But if I'd have done this ranking like a month ago, before I'd watched season 5, I might have put this in the top 10 today. It just so happens I'm not in a good mood with American Horror Story right now. But the advantage to a setup like this is that even if you find yourself not enjoying it, at the back of your mind, you can always think, well, next season will be a completely different thing, so I might still enjoy that. Now, I think they're filming season 11 for this at the moment, so I'm a long way behind in terms of where I am, but I'm still actively watching this show. This isn't one of these today that I've watched in the past and I've set it aside. So maybe this can finally be a TV show that I actually finish. I should just come out and say that it's one of my big ambitions in life, to finally finish a TV show at some point. Similar to Lost, this was a big thing when it came out. So if you don't know, 24, it's a show about a counter-terrorism unit in America, led or largely led by a character called Jack Bauer, played by Kiefer Sutherland. Every time there's a major threat in the United States, like somebody selling nuclear weapons somewhere, or there's a bomb that might go off somewhere, the CTU, as it's known, they get involved. But every single story just happens to last 24 hours and plays out in real time. That's the gimmick of this show, hence 24, the title. Yeah, it's you have to not overthink the fact that every story just happens to take 24 hours to the second. Just don't think about that and enjoy the show. But this was so addictive when it first came out. I mean, the cliffhangers were just perfect. Every single episode, you were just left desperate to find out what would happen in the next hour. And this was so good for so long. Like, the show didn't even peak for the longest time. My favourite season of this was probably season 5, actually, but also I think season 6 was the worst one that I saw. That was where the show probably went downhill. It's not that 6 was terrible TV. It just started to get tiring watching the same thing play out again. Now, I believe with season 7, because I didn't actually stick around after season 6, I must admit, I believe, though, that with season 7, they did try and mix it up and do something different. But they probably left that one season too late, because I think a lot of people left this show after season 6. So they did 7 and 8, and then they did a season that didn't have Kiefer Sutherland. I think it was called 24 Legacy, maybe. That only lasted 1 year, so I don't know if it's any good. Kiefer Sutherland did come back for like a run of episodes that added up to about 12 hours, I think. So half of the usual run. Yeah, I never watched that one either. So there's lots of seasons towards the back end of this that I didn't watch, shock horror. But at some point, I kind of think that this is another one I might go back to. I actually spotted just the other week, actually, that this is available to watch on Disney. And at the time, I was like, oh, they've got 24. Nope, don't do it. I've got too much stuff on. Don't do it. This is a police procedural show. So the NCIS stands for Naval Criminal Investigative Service, I think. So basically, this is about a bunch of characters with badges who solve naval-related crimes. And trust me, those type of crimes are more numerous than you would think. This is a really long-running show. I think they're just about to start season 19 or 20. It's still ongoing. I've watched the first 5 seasons, which is barely a quarter of the show's entire run, but that's still a lot of episodes that I've watched. So there's usually 22 or 24 episodes a season, so that means that I would have definitely watched more than 100 episodes, I think. I just got to the point where I was just ready to move on, but it's such a good show. It's very, very funny. The interactions between the characters in this are just brilliant sometimes. And the mysteries themselves are very engaging. This show had a number of spin-offs as well. So there was NCIS Los Angeles, Chris O'Donnell and LL Cool J are in that. I think that's run for over 10 seasons now. I watched a couple of seasons of the LA one, but certainly the fact that I'd already spent 5 seasons with the original series in Washington meant that, well, that sort of hampered my willingness to watch a lot of the LA one as well, if you see what I mean. I also tried the NCIS New Orleans one, which is quite good. Again, I watched a couple of seasons of that and then moved on. And I believe they've just started another one called NCIS Hawaii, and I've not watched that. So if you like this show, I mean, it's one of those that's just endless, really. You could start a YouTube channel just devoted to NCIS, just review one episode of video or something. You'd never run out of material. As to whether anybody would watch it, completely different matter, but theoretically you could certainly make it. This is a supernatural show about a medium played by Jennifer Love Hewitt. She can see ghosts, she can talk to ghosts. So in every episode, she's got to try and persuade these ghosts to cross over into the light, to stop hanging around on Earth. So to go about this, she'll have to come up with creative ways to persuade them to go. It's a hard show when it comes to explaining the mechanics of how it works, really. You'd have to sort of watch it. But it's a good drama, and what's always amused me about it is that it was filmed on the same lot as Back to the Future. So if you've seen those films, you'll be familiar with the town square place with all the freshly manicured lawns and the fountains, and in the background you can see the clock tower that factors into the story and what have you. This show, it takes place on that same patch of land, and they haven't really changed all that much, so you're constantly reminded of Back to the Future when you're watching this. I just wish they'd put in a little Easter egg, you know, have Melinda, the main character, bump into an old woman ghost who goes, "Save the clock tower, save the clock tower," but that never happens. Also quite funny is the fact that Thomas F. Wilson comes into this show in maybe the 3rd season. Thomas F. Wilson played Biff Tannen in Back to the Future. It's such a weird coincidence, but I really liked this. It ran for 5 seasons and I watched 4 of them. So I came so close on this one. I just never started season 5. And I can't really pick it up now because it's been that long. I would be so far behind the 8 ball if I started to watch the first episode of season 5. I'd have to watch it from the very beginning, and as to whether I would ever do that, I don't know. So I'm probably kind of stuffed now in terms of trying to complete this. But back in its day, it was a damn good TV show, this. This is about a Secret Service type organisation that operates worldwide. So the protagonists have to go here, there and everywhere, taking on various terrorist groups. I think this ran for about 7 or 8 seasons. I watched about 4 of them. There are different heroes in different seasons, although my favourites were absolutely this particular pair of guys who were in it from like season 2 to, I don't know, season 4 or 5 or something like that. A Brit and an American working together, fantastic camaraderie that those particular two had. The American shags around a lot, but it's just great action, this. It feels like each episode has quite a high budget. I think it helps that they don't do too many episodes a season with this one. There's like maybe 10 episodes each time or something like that. So like I said with The Shield earlier, if you wanted to get into this, it wouldn't take a massive amount of commitment. There's probably no more than like 60, 70, 80 episodes total, something like that. Charles Dance was the villain in one of the seasons. It's a really good, underrated show, this. If you just like good, solid action, then this is absolutely something for you. It's a bit like, if you've ever played Call of Duty, the single player, not the multiplayer, this is like a TV show that's reflective of the single player experience from most Call of Duty games. It's sort of like that. Another police procedural. This one takes place in Hawaii, obviously. What a gorgeous place, by the way. I mean, there's a reason why they keep making different TV shows that are set in Hawaii, because the place is just so gorgeous to look at. This TV show is so colourful, honestly. So this is a remake of a show which originally came out in the 70s, maybe. But this retooled version is absolutely fantastic. It's sort of like NCIS in theory, but with a smidgen more action, I'd say. The chemistry between the two main characters, Steve and Danny, is absolutely hilarious most of the time. And yeah, they go around the island solving mysteries, dealing with crime, dealing with terrorism. You get some storylines which run for longer than others, but it's just a great show with lots of good action and good humour. And I think I got halfway through season 6 with this one. I had a good run with this one. Got nowhere near the end. I mean, it ran for 10 seasons. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point, but as to whether I'll reach the end, I don't know, probably not. But cracking show. Really enjoyed this when it was on. Now for something a little different, because this is a documentary show. So there's this guy called Josh Gates. He's a traveller, presenter. And what he does in this, he goes around the world trying to solve unsolved mysteries, basically. So one week we might see him looking for Inca gold that went missing centuries ago and never turned up. Now, Gates very rarely finds anything or solves these mysteries, but that's not the point. The fun of this is watching him try, watching him go to all these random countries and experience new cultures. So if he went to Peru, for example, looking for Inca gold, we might see him, you know, lower himself into a couple of caves and wave his flashlight around for a bit. Whether he finds anything or not is not the point. The point is that we enjoy his adventure, we enjoy his travels. The next week he might be deep sea diving, looking for some old wreck at the bottom of the ocean, and will he find anything? Who cares? We're just enjoying watching him try. You know, that's the point of this. Josh Gates used to do another show called Destination Truth, and that was really good as well. In that show, he would go around the world trying to solve paranormal mysteries, and then I guess at some point he got fed up of that and wanted to do something a bit more reality-based. There's also a spin-off of Expedition Unknown, which is called Expedition X, which is like a combination of Destination Truth and Expedition Unknown. That's not Gates doing that one, it's a couple of other people. My son's watched that one, he says it's quite good. But yeah, I love this show, Expedition Unknown. I don't know how many seasons or episodes it's been running for now, but it's been going for quite a few years. But it's something that I just like to check in on from time to time and watch a random episode. Probably the oldest show on today's list. This is about a detective who wears a white coat and he solves murders, basically. But the twist with this one is that in the prologue of every episode, we get to see how the murderer killed their victim. So the entertainment for us for the rest of the episode is getting to watch Columbo solve the mystery. He himself seems to know who the murderer is, though, straight off the bat every single time. He just instinctively knows who it is. So for most of the hour, or however long it is, it's mostly a case of Columbo working over the murderer with conversation and just gradually wearing him down and getting on his nerves, and eventually some crucial clue will fall into place that will allow Columbo to prove that this guy or woman committed the murder. It's a really well-written show. All the episodes are of such a high quality. My wife bought me season 1 on DVD as a Christmas present once, and I got more out of those 7 episodes than most TV shows when they do 20, 24 episodes or whatever. Sadly, not a show that's probably picked up by that many younger people these days, I could imagine. It's not even an easy show to get a hold of. Regular TV does show the occasional episode from all the seasons, I think. But if you want to stream them chronologically, I think you can only stream the first 2 seasons for some reason. I checked a couple of days ago. So probably DVD is your best bet, either in some big box set or in individual seasons. This is another epic one, like NCIS. I never would have thought that I'd get into a show like this. It was my wife who persuaded me to give it a try. And she liked it that much that she was actually willing to abandon the place where she'd gotten to and start all over again with me from the beginning of season 1. So this is a medical drama. There's loads of them on TV. This is the only one that I've ever really gotten into, though. It's got a very comedic feel to it. There's lots of comedy. The various medical cases that are brought into the hospital, that side of things I don't find that interesting. For me, the enjoyment of Grey's Anatomy is, you know, watching how the relationships between the doctors evolve over time and just enjoying the funny bits, etc., etc. So me and my wife went on this run through this many, many years ago now. We got as far as the beginning of season 7, I think, and then we got out of the habit of watching it, or we decided to take a break and just never went back. Fast forward many, many years, and quite recently, actually, I spotted that this is on Disney. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to this and give it another go. But because it's been so long, I decided to start from the beginning. So I'm on a new run right now, actually, and I've got as far as halfway through season 3. So I'm slowly working my way back to where I was, and hopefully this time I'll go on and I don't want to say I'm going to finish it. I probably won't. It's on like season 18 in the present day. It's a really, really long show, but very, very high quality. Yeah. Credit to my wife for discovering this one, because I really enjoy it. This is a sci-fi show set in a future where the world has become too polluted to live on. There's like toxic fumes all over the place for some reason. So the remaining humans go into space and start living on a spaceship, but they've only got limited resources on this ship. So eventually they have to send some people back down to Earth to see if the fumes have cleared or whatever. So they send 100 teenagers, I think. It's been a while since I saw this, so forgive me if I'm a little bit hazy on the details. I think that's where the title of the show comes from, because they send exactly 100 teens down to see if it's possible to live on Earth. I can't remember why the teens are picked on in particular, but obviously it turns out that they can live down there. So season 1 is a kind of Lord of the Flies situation with these teens falling out down on Earth and trying to build some kind of camp, some kind of new civilization. But we also see a lot of the drama on the spaceship because they're running out of resources up there, the adults who didn't come down. But what I like about this show is the fact that every season is so different. Like by the time we get to season 2, we're in a completely different situation, different set of circumstances. Same with season 3 and beyond. I got through 4 seasons of this out of 7, so another show I didn't get to the end of. I was actually following this as it came out. I was watching each episode as it was released on TV, and I think what happened is they took a while to put season 5 on TV, and when it came on TV I just didn't start watching it for whatever reason. I'd moved on and started doing other things with my time, so a bit of a shame. I'd love to finish it off one day. I'm 3 seasons from the end. I don't know if I could pick it up from there again, or if I would have to restart. But it's a terrific little show. It's not the most well known. It's a fairly low budget show, but they did so well with the money they had. Really, really good stuff. So this is a firefighting show about the employees of a station house as they go on their various missions to put fires out. That's not the right word, is it? As they go on their quests to rescue people from burning buildings. It's a lot of fun watching these characters get into their various scrapes. You know, we get fires, we get other situations like collapsing buildings and people stuck in sewers, all sorts of stuff. Really good. But also, it's fun to watch how the relationships develop between the main characters. There's lots of comedy in this, and this show is genuinely really, really funny at times. Now, how far did I get through this one? I got roughly halfway through season 6, I think, and then I went off to do something else and never went back. I think they've just finished season 10. This is still an ongoing show. I would like to go back to it at some point, but the thing with going back to TV shows that you've already watched in the past, I find that you've really got to think about it carefully before you commit. You know, watching a show, it takes up a lot of time, especially with a show like this that's got like into the hundreds of episodes by now. You know, if I'm deciding to rewatch a movie that I've not seen for 5 years, I'm happy to make a very spontaneous decision with that. I might put it on like 5 minutes after I thought of the idea, but with a TV show it's different. You've got to really mull on it for a little while. Make sure you absolutely are committed to the idea of watching it or going back to it if you've seen it before. It's a bit like being careful of diving into a long-term relationship or something. You've got to think about that carefully, you know, whereas if it's a one-night stand or a quick fling, maybe you don't have to think about it as much because it's not such a long-term commitment. That's a terrible analogy, but you get my point. The last thing to say about Chicago Fire is that it's part of a shared universe of TV shows. So there's this one that's all to do with the fire department. There's also Chicago Med, which is about well, it's a medical drama, but I don't need another one of those. I haven't seen that one. There's also Chicago PD, which is about a police department. Now, I have seen that one. It's really good. I've seen a few seasons of that. I haven't included it in today's ranking because I wanted to have some variety in this ranking, not just have a whole bunch of shows from the same universe, but Chicago PD is a good time. And they did have a 4th show briefly, Chicago Justice, which was about a legal team, I think. It only ran for 1 season. It didn't really get off the ground, that one. But Chicago Fire, the best of the bunch for me. I do like a good fire drama. There's another one I watch, Station 19, basically a carbon copy of what Chicago Fire is. Station 19 is very good as well. That is actually a spin-off of Grey's Anatomy, although the 2 shows don't actually interweave all that much. So there we go. This is about an FBI task force, but it's also about this career criminal called Red Reddington. So in the very first episode of this, Reddington hands himself into the FBI and basically cuts a deal with them where he gets to stay out of prison as long as he helps them catch all their most wanted and various other criminals and assassins from around the world on whom Reddington seemingly has a never-ending amount of information on. But why is he doing this in the first place? And why does he have a special interest in one particular female member of the task force? Lots of mysteries here that in some cases will take many seasons to resolve. I watched this from the very first episode it came on TV. I had no idea that it was going to become such a big, long-running thing. I mean, I think they've reached season 10 with this now. I got as far as season 7, something like that, and then I did my usual thing. I took a break and I just never went back to it. But it was still really, really good. in season 7. In fact, it was possibly better in season 7 than it was even in season 1. The first couple of seasons had a few kinks to work through from what I could remember, but over time this became such a great show. It's got a bit of action, it's got intrigue, it's got some really wacky villains that they chase down in these episodes. But the best thing about it is Reddington himself. This guy is an absolute hoot. In fact, I would say he's probably my favourite character in all of television ever. He's just amazing, this guy, brilliantly played by James Spader. They made a spin-off of this once called The Blacklist Redemption, but it only lasted 1 season, presumably because it didn't have Reddington in it. So I can imagine people just weren't that interested. I don't think I even checked that out, but yeah, the rest of this show is absolutely amazing, and it's become absolutely epic now, still going after like 10 seasons. The only animated show in today's ranking, I don't think this one needs any introduction. Everybody knows what The Simpsons is. I love the real world satire in this. I've watched The Simpsons for probably almost 30 years. I can still remember watching my very first episode in the 90s when I was a teenager. It was called Bart the Daredevil. It's a season 2 episode. Basically, Bart tries to jump over this gorge with a skateboard. He's been inspired by this stuntman guy he saw at a monster truck rally. I laughed so much during that episode that it instantly made me a fan of the show. Although, over time, I never felt the need to take the show that seriously to the point where I would deliberately watch it regularly, deliberately try and watch all the seasons. You know, for me, this has always been something to just watch an occasional episode of if I see it on before Hollyoaks or something like that. But just recently, I sort of took stock of the fact that the show is still ongoing. It's now into its like 30th season or something. And I thought to myself, okay, wouldn't it be fun to finally, after all this time, after all these years, to finally try and watch it chronologically? Because I spotted that it was on Disney. You can watch all the episodes on that at the touch of a button. So I thought, why not give it a go finally? So that's what I've been doing. And I've just recently got to the end of season 2. I'm not binge watching it, you know, I'm still just watching like a couple of episodes a week, but I'm getting through it slowly. And what's amazed me so far is the fact that I've already watched loads of episodes I've totally never seen. I think in my head I thought I'd seen more of The Simpsons than I probably had, but no, I've probably not even seen half of the catalogue, to be honest, so I can't call myself like a super diehard fan or anything like that, but I'm enjoying my little journey, as short as it's been so far, and we'll see how far through I get with it. This is a police procedural show, but you might be relieved to know it's the final one today. So out of these types of shows, this is my favourite. It's set in New York. It's not about the actual New York Police Department, though. It's about a police family. So in this one family, we've got the granddad figure who's in his 80s. He's a retired police commissioner. And then there's his son who's in his 60s, Tom Selleck's character. He's the current police commissioner. Then he's got a son who's in his 40s, played by Donnie Wahlberg. He's like the hero detective, the best one in the department, you know. He's got a younger brother of about 30 who's like the rookie. He's just joined the force. He's learning the ropes. And they've even got a sister who is like the star lawyer of all of New York. So an impossible amount of talent in the one family. It doesn't work that way in real life. You know, you might get one standout star, but you're not going to get all this incredible talent around one dinner table. But it's a TV show, so we can forgive it, you know. Speaking of dinner tables, one of the great things about this show is the fact that the characters will often get literally around the dinner table and just discuss all the issues of the day and approach it from different angles, approach it from different sides, and just have really interesting little 2 or 3 minute discussions. But mainly the show is about, you know, crimes getting solved, murders getting solved, various problems springing up around New York. We'll spend some time with Selleck in his commissioner's office as he deals with political issues. It's got quite a broad spectrum, this, in terms of what it covers. Lots of everything in and around New York. And New York itself is like a character. It looks terrific in this. This is just an absolutely fantastic show. I watched it from the very beginning, actually, but as you can probably guess, I haven't seen it all the way up to the end. Yeah. So I think they're up to roughly season 12 now. I got as far as, I think I watched 5 seasons, then I took a break, but I'm quite comfortable with that because when it comes to Blue Bloods, when I do eventually go back to it, and I will, because it's a great show, I won't need to go back to the beginning with this one because there's no like long-running storylines. Most of the episodes are wrapped up in 45 minutes. Occasionally they'll do like a two-parter or something, three-part or whatever. But I'm totally comfortable with going back to where I was at the beginning of season 6, something like that. But yeah, can't recommend this one highly enough. The characters have mostly stayed the same as well. There's not like loads of people dropping out. I think they've still pretty much got most of the original family, even though they're like at season 12. How the hell the really old granddad is still in it, I've got no idea, because I think he is, but he looked old in season 1. It's bizarre. So yeah, I've got The Walking Dead in the bronze medal position today. I think most people know what this is. Essentially, it's Dawn of the Dead, the TV show. I've had an interesting journey with this. I used to follow the show as and when new episodes were released, and I got as far as season 8 before I stepped away. If you know this show, you'll know that it came into a bit of criticism around about the season 6, 7 and 8 mark. People started to feel like the stories weren't progressing fast enough. The show was kind of stuck in a rut a little bit. I think part of the reason for that is because if you watch this show one episode a week as they're being released, it can feel a little bit slow and frustrating. I think this is a show that's better for binging, in all honesty, watching it at your own speed. Now, quite recently, I noticed that it was free to watch on Amazon, so I actually chose to start watching the show from the beginning. I didn't have to, because it's not been that long since I'd given up on it, but I enjoy this so much. I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to give this a second run through because I actually want to. So I think I'm back up to like season 4 now on my second run. But I'm anticipating that I will enjoy the sticky part of this better this time, season 6, 7 and 8, because I'm now able to binge and do it at my own speed. I don't have to watch one episode and feel frustrated that I'm going to have to wait another week to find out what the hell they were doing with that particular plot line, if you see what I mean. In the present day, the show is just coming to an end, actually, at the end of season 11, and I've heard from reviews that seasons 9, 10, 11 are a massive improvement over that middle portion of the show. So I'm very optimistic for really enjoying this as I get towards the end. It's got some spin-offs, this as well. There's a show called Fear the Walking Dead, which takes place in LA. So all the shows for this take place in the same universe. The main original show takes place on the east side of America. Fear the Walking Dead takes place on the west side of America. And I think there's a third spin-off called The World Beyond that's maybe more central. I don't know, because I've not seen that one, but there's a few other little spin-offs and limited series in the pipeline. It's quite a big universe, this now, but it's a terrific show. It's very, very well made. And personally, I really, really like it. So it's time to find out what is my second favourite TV show of all time. Let's see what it is. So if you don't know, this is about a couple of FBI agents called Mulder and Scully who investigate paranormal problems, government conspiracies, all sorts. I've watched this since the 90s. I absolutely love it. It's been a big part of my life, although I didn't properly get into it until the early noughties. At that point, I borrowed some of my friends' VHS tapes of all the seasons and watched it through. Now, I'm tempted to say that this is the first show on this ranking I have properly completed. I did get to the very end of season 9 once, and that was, at the time, all the episodes. But at some point quite recently, they did a revival show. So basically, they did a short season 10, and I watched that, so I was back up to date again. And then they brought out a limited run of episodes, which was season 11, I guess, officially. But I haven't watched those. So technically, I guess you'd have to say this is yet another show I haven't finished. So we're back on 0 shows in this ranking that I have made it all the way to the end of. But this is as close as I've ever gotten, I suppose. But what a fantastic show. I've had so much fun out of this over the years. I've rewatched it quite a few times, actually. Not always got all the way through. I think I've only got all the way through it once, but there's been a few other times I've started it, got through a few seasons and had enough, and then 2 or 3 years later, gone on another big run, you know. It's just right up my street, this. Right, there is one show, though, which beats it into the #1 position. Let's find out what that is. Yep, Supernatural is my favourite TV show of all time. This is an absolutely amazing series. It's not that dissimilar from The X-Files in that we've got two main characters here who work together to hunt down paranormal things, monsters, demons, the devil himself at one point. We don't have the government conspiracy angle with this like we do with The X-Files, and also this series is a lot lighter in tone. Even my wife has enjoyed watching this with me over the years because it's not really a scary show. It's fun watching the various things that the brothers hunt, but it's not something that's going to have you sort of cowering behind your pillow. There's this jump scare in a really early episode that literally almost had my wife going over the back of the settee. But apart from that, it's just something that you can enjoy. Although technically it is horror. It's a long one. It's like 15 seasons or something like that. I got about halfway through season 12. I went a long way with this, and then finally I just had enough. But I will go back to it. I will absolutely finish this off at some point. It doesn't sit easy with me that there are people out there who can call themselves bigger Supernatural fans than me just because they finished it and I haven't. But yeah, I've had so much fun out of this show through the years. I actually watched the first episode when it first came on TV, and I bought my first DVD box set for this, season 1, at a time when they were still showing like season 3 on television. So I was a fan from a very, very early stage. I never would have guessed back then that it would go on to become what it did. It's just an amazing show. If you've not seen it, check it out. You'll have so much fun with it. But that is it. That is it for today. That is my top 20 favourite TV shows. Do let me know your favourite 20 in the comments. Actually, that's probably too much of an endeavour to ask of anyone. You just drop me your top 5 even. I'd be fascinated to know that. Right, I'll be back another time with a video where I'm sure I will be returning to the world of movies. Until then, cheerio, bye-bye.